The year was 1841, and the Carolinian lowlands were drowning in their own silence. The plantation fields stretched out like a dying beast, silent, breathless, and always watching. Among the workers who moved through the endless rows of wet cotton was a woman whose presence felt more like a shadow than a living soul. Her name was Mary Beth Carter, and although no man could recall the day she arrived on the plantation, everyone remembered the night she disappeared. For weeks before her vanishing, strange things had begun to seep into the air around her. Small, almost unnoticeable disturbances at first, the kind that made even the strongest overseer keep his voice low. The skies would cloud over whenever she stepped outside, as though the heavens themselves bent to her movements. The birds would scatter the moment her footsteps touched the dirt. Even the hounds, massive, snarling beasts, refused to go near her cabin after sundown. Rumors spread through the quarters like fever. Some said Mary Beth had been born with a veil over her face. Some said she spoke to things that were no longer alive. Some whispered that she was waiting for something or someone hidden in the fog. But no rumor carried more weight than the one spoken by the older women, those who had survived more winters than they cared to count. They said that the mist in those fields was not natural. They said the fog carried voices, and Mary Beth was the only one who listened. The night before she vanished, the air felt wrong. Thick, heavy, as if the sky had spilled something poisonous across the land. A windless cold crawled across the fields, and even the moon dimmed behind drifting clouds. Most people stayed inside, clutching thin blankets and whispering prayers into their hands. But Mary Beth sat alone outside her cabin, her eyes fixed on the white haze creeping between the trees. She had been quieter than usual that day, her movements measured, her breathing shallow. Multiple workers recalled seeing her freeze suddenly while picking cotton, staring into the tree line as if she saw something no one else could. When they asked what she was looking at, she simply whispered, "It's almost time." No one dared to press further. By midnight, the plantation bells rang out, slow, hollow strikes that echoed through every cabin. It meant only one thing. The overseers were making their rounds. The workers blew out their lanterns. The forest swallowed the sound of boots thudding against the earth. But at Mary Beth's cabin, there was no light to extinguish. She was already gone. At dawn the next morning, a thin white mist rolled over the fields, thicker than anyone had ever seen. It clung to the ground like a living thing, curling, reaching, hiding whatever lay beneath it. The sun fought to rise through the suffocating whiteness, but its rays dissolved before they touched the soil. 3 workers, Jonas, Ruth, and old Caleb, were the first to notice Mary Beth's cabin door standing wide open. There were no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no discarded belongings. Her bed remained neatly made, her single wooden chair tucked in its place, her single cup still resting near the hearth. Nothing suggested she had packed or run, except for one thing. Bare footprints, her footprints, led from the cabin steps straight toward the fields. But something was wrong. The prints were too clean, too sharp, too perfectly formed, almost as if they hadn't been left by a human foot at all, but by something shaped like one. The 3 workers followed the trail cautiously, each step sinking into the wet ground with a soft, sucking sound. The mist deepened the farther they walked, swallowing their legs up to the knee, swirling like white smoke heated from beneath the soil. Ruth whispered that they should turn back. Caleb muttered a prayer. Jonas gripped a rusted lantern so tightly his knuckles paled. Still they walked. The prince led them past the first row of cotton, then the second, then the third. By the 5th row, the fog became so dense the world shrank to a small circle around their bodies. The cotton stalks vanished into white nothingness, leaving only the faint rustle of leaves shifting without wind. Then, a sound, soft, throaty, not quite human. A humming, slow, rhythmic, weaving through the fog like an old forgotten lullaby. Ruth grabbed Caleb's arm. Jonas raised the lantern higher, but the light dimmed unnaturally, as if something in the mist were swallowing the flame. The humming grew louder, deeper, then it stopped, and the world went silent. The footprints ended abruptly at a patch of ground where the soil had been turned up, almost as if someone, or something, had pulled Mary Beth downward into the earth itself. Jonas crouched and touched the disturbed soil. It was warm, unnaturally warm, as if a heartbeat pulsed beneath it. Before any of them could speak, A shift came through the fog, a slow, heavy movement. A silhouette formed in the whiteness. Tall, still, watching them. Jonas staggered back. Ruth choked on her own breath. Caleb whispered, "Lord, help us." But the figure didn't move closer. It only stood there, head slightly tilted, as though studying them. Jonas lifted the lantern again, and this time the flame flared bright enough to cut through the mist just for a second, just long enough for them to see it clearly. It wasn't and it wasn't a woman, that it wasn't anything they had ever seen. Its outline shifted, bending like smoke caught in slow motion. Its form stretched in ways no human body could stretch. And its eyes, if those dark, bottomless pits could be called eyes, glowed faintly with a pale, bluish light. The same kind of light people had whispered about. The same kind of light Mary Beth had followed the night before. Ruth screamed. Caleb fell to his knees. Jonas dropped the lantern, and the flames sputtered out instantly, snuffed out not by dampness, but by something else lurking in the air. The figure dissolved back into the mist, leaving only a strange, hollow echo. And then, faintly, so faintly it chilled their blood, a woman's voice, calling a name that none of them recognized. The mist swallowed the sound, and Mary Beth was never seen again. The disappearance of Mary Beth spread across the plantation like a fevered plague. By sundown, every cabin door was shut tight, every candle burned low behind trembling hands, and every whispered conversation carried the same question. What did she see in the mist? The overseers dismissed her vanishing as another runaway, but no one believed it, not even the overseers themselves. They had seen the footprints, the disturbed soil, the lantern light that died without reason. They knew something unnatural had walked those fields at dawn. Still, they ordered silence. No one was to speak Mary Beth's name again. No one was to go near the spot where her trail ended. Anyone seen wandering after dark would be locked inside the root cellar until sunrise. But fear does what punishment never can. It makes people curious. And the curiosity began with Elijah Turner, a young worker barely 17, whose cabin sat closest to Mary Beth's. That night, Elijah could not sleep. The air felt wrong. The wind hummed low, almost like a warning. The moon pulsed behind the clouds as if trying to escape something unseen. Elijah kept replaying the stories he'd heard. That Mary Beth talked to shadows. That she knew the dreams of others. That the mist near her cabin sometimes moved even when the air was still, and that 3 people, Jonas, Ruth, and Caleb, had seen something standing in the fog, something tall, something watching, something waiting. Elijah's hands shook as he sat on his bed, staring through the cracks in his cabin wall at the faint outline of Mary Beth's empty home. The door remained wide open, creaking every now and then, though no breeze touched it. It was as if the cabin was breathing at midnight, while the rest of the quarters lay in terrified silence. Elijah made a decision he knew could ruin him. He was going inside. The soil was damp beneath his feet as he approached her cabin. The night air bit into his skin, colder than any winter wind he had known. Elijah paused at the doorway, gripping the frame as if expecting something to pull him inside. The room was small, but the darkness inside felt vast, too vast, as though the walls had stretched into something deeper than wood and nail. Elijah stepped in. The silence inside the cabin was suffocating. He could hear his heartbeat, loud and frantic, echoing off the walls like distant knocking. The bed was still made. The cup was still near the hearth. Everything was untouched, but the air felt occupied. Elijah swallowed hard. "Mary Beth?" he whispered before he could stop himself. For a heartbeat, for a single impossible second, the room seemed to listen. His breath hitched. He saw something then, something he had missed before. Burn marks. Thin, slender, almost like symbols, carved into the wooden floor near the bed. They formed no alphabet he recognized, no pattern that made sense. They curved in spirals, intersected, twisted together like roots seeking the surface. That he crouched closer. The marks pulsed faintly. As if reacting to his closeness, he jerked backward, stumbling into the table. The cup toppled and shattered on the floor. The noise cracked through the silence like lightning. And then, something moved behind him. Elijah spun around so quickly, he nearly fell to nothing but in a one, just the empty doorway and the thick darkness beyond it. But he had felt it, a breath, a shift in the air, a presence standing just behind his shoulder. He backed away slowly, every instinct screaming at him to run. But as he reached the threshold, he heard it, a whisper, soft, female, close enough to feel against his ear. He is not done. Elijah froze. The whisper repeated, this time from the back of the cabin. He is not done. Elijah bolted out the door so fast, he didn't feel the wooden frame scrape his arm. He sprinted across the dirt, past the cabins, past the well, not stopping until he crashed into Jonas, who was stepping out to fetch water. Jonas grabbed him by the shoulders. Boy, what happened? What did you see? Elijah gasped for air. There's something in her cabin. Something still there. Something speaking. Jonas shook him. Slow down. What did it say? Elijah swallowed, trembling uncontrollably. It said, he is not done. Jonas's face drained of color. Not because of the words, but because of something else entirely. Elijah. Jonas whispered, tightening his grip. Who told you that? Elijah blinked. What? Who told you? Only Mary Beth said that phrase. Elijah shook his head. What are you talking about? I never heard it before. But Jonas wasn't listening anymore. He was staring past Elijah, toward the tree line. His eyes widened. His throat locked. Elijah, don't turn around. The boy froze. Why? Jonas's voice cracked. Because something is standing in the fog right behind you. A coldness washed over Elijah's spine. The night grew unnaturally still. Even the insects went silent. He could feel it. Feel something enormous, something tall, something wrong, standing so close that the air behind him seemed warped. Jonas whispered, step forward slowly. But before Elijah could move, another voice slipped through the darkness. Not Mary Beth's, not human, but a rasping, broken whisper. He is almost here. Elijah's breath died in his chest. Jonas staggered back, and from the tree line, the fog began to move. Not drift up, move at as though something inside it was crawling toward them. Slow, deliberate, inevitable. The bells rang out suddenly. 3 long metallic strikes that echoed across the plantation. Jonas yanked Elijah away from the creeping mist. Get inside. Now. The fog surged violently, as if reacting to the sound. Elijah ran with Jonas toward the nearest cabin, the ground shaking ever so slightly beneath their feet, as though something enormous were dragging itself across the earth. They slammed the door shut. Lights flickered. Walls groaned. Wind pushed against the cabin from all sides. And then, a single knock. Slow, heavy, impossible. Knock. Jonas pressed his back to the door, eyes wide, whispering desperately, don't answer it. No matter what you hear, don't answer. But Elijah wasn't looking at the door anymore. He was staring at the small window beside them. Because through the glass, through the fog, a face was staring back at him. Not human, not alive. And it whispered, Section 3. The window frosted over instantly. The face vanished, and the knocking stopped. Sleep refused to touch the plantation that night. It crawled over the cabins, hesitant and frightened, like a creature too scared to settle. Inside Jonas's cabin, Elijah sat trembling beside the window, still seeing the outline of that impossible face burned into his memory. Jonas paced the room, dragging a hand across his forehead. Something followed you, he muttered. Something from her cabin, from that fog. Elijah didn't respond. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His mind kept replaying the voice that shouldn't have known anything about the story, yet spoke a single phrase that chilled his bones. He is almost here. Who was he, and why did the fog seem to worship him? Outside, the night pressed against the walls like a living weight. Every few minutes the wood creaked, as if something brushed against it deliberately. Testing, searching, listening. Jonas finally stopped pacing and lowered his voice. There's someone we need to talk to, someone who knows old things. Things most people pretend don't exist. Elijah frowned. Who? Jonas hesitated before whispering. Old Ruth. Elijah's heart dropped. Everyone feared Ruth. Not because she was cruel, but because she knew. She had lived long enough to hear stories that predated the plantation, long enough to understand whispers in the dark that others tried to ignore. And she had been one of the three who saw that impossible figure in the mist. Jonas cracked the door open. Cold air pushed inside the cabin immediately, thick with a strange metallic scent. Blood-like. Heavy. Wrong. Stay close, Jonas whispered. The two slipped out into the night. The quarters lay silent under the choking fog that had crept in again, thicker than before, whiter, heavier, its edges curling across the dirt like fingers dragging themselves forward. Elijah's breath formed pale clouds that vanished too quickly, as if the air was swallowing them. Ruth's cabin was only a dozen steps away, but the path stretched impossibly long, warping under the mist's weight. Shadows moved between the other cabins, slow and deliberate. Jonas gripped Elijah's arm. Don't look at them. Don't slow down. Elijah didn't ask what he meant. He didn't want to know. They reached Ruth's cabin and knocked once to no answer. Jonas knocked again. Ruth? It's Jonas. The door creaked open the slightest bit, and a single eye stared out. Old, cracked with age, but blazing with a sharp intelligence that could cut through fog itself. You boys shouldn't be outside at this hour, Ruth whispered, pulling them inside before they could reply. Her cabin smelled of herbs, smoke, and fear. Dried plants hung from the ceiling. Symbols, old, jagged symbols, were carved into the window frames, the door, the floor, the same symbols Elijah had seen glowing in Mary Beth's cabin. Elijah's voice cracked. Ruth, you know what's happening, don't you? Ruth said nothing at first. She lit a candle, its flame trembling violently. She placed it on the table and finally turned toward them. I know what came from Mary Beth, she said. And I know it isn't done. Elijah felt his stomach twist. What was that thing in the fog? What did you see? Ruth sat heavily, her bones creaking with the chair. I didn't just see it. I've seen it before. She reached for a cloth-wrapped bundle beneath her bed and placed it gently on the table. Elijah leaned closer, but Ruth slammed her hand down. Don't touch it. Her voice cut the air like a blade. She unwrapped the cloth slowly, revealing a faded piece of parchment, yellowed, torn, ancient. Drawn on it was a figure, tall, twisted, with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. Mist swirled around it like serpents. Elijah felt the air leave his chest. The figure on the parchment looked exactly like the one he had seen in the fog. Jonas whispered, What is that? Ruth's expression hardened. He is called the Watcher in the White, born from the old tales of the swamps. Some said he was a spirit of lost souls. Others said he was something older, something that should have never known human names. Elijah's skin crawled. Why did he take Mary Beth? Ruth's eyes softened, full of sorrow. He didn't take her. She followed him. Why? Because Mary Beth was marked. Elijah stared. Marked how? Ruth lifted Elijah's arm suddenly, startling him. She pointed to the thin, fresh scrape the doorway had left on his skin earlier. Elijah tried to pull away, confused. It's just a scratch. No, Ruth whispered. Look closer. Elijah leaned toward the candlelight, his breath caught. The scrape wasn't a simple line anymore. The edges had spread slightly, curving, bending, twisting into a faint shape. A symbol point, one of the same symbols from Mary Beth's floor, the same symbols from Ruth's cabin, the same symbols drawn on the parchment. Elijah's heartbeat thundered. What's happening to me? Ruth pulled her hand back, trembling. He touched you tonight, she said. Not with hands, but with his presence. The mist chooses the marked, just like it chose Mary Beth. Jonas stepped forward. There must be something we can do, some way to stop this. Ruth shook her head. No one stops the Watcher. No one bargains with him. If he has marked the boy, then the fog will return for him. And next time, it will not wait outside a window. Elijah's voice barely escaped his throat. What does he want from me? Ruth leaned closer. He wants what he always wants. Elijah swallowed. What's that? The candle flickered violently, almost extinguishing. Ruth whispered. A witness. Elijah stared blankly. A witness to what? Ruth opened her mouth to speak, but froze. Her eyes widened. Her chest rose sharply. Her gaze locked on something behind Elijah. Jonas reacted first. Ruth? What is it? Ruth didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move. She lifted a trembling hand and pointed toward the window behind Elijah. Slowly, painfully, Elijah turned. The window pane had frosted over completely. Ice spread across the glass in twisting lines that looked horribly familiar. The same symbol growing on his arm. And behind the frost, pressed against the glass from the outside, a tall silhouette. Watching, waiting, its hollow white eyes glowing faintly through the ice. Ruth whispered, voice trembling with terror, "He found you." The candle died. Darkness swallowed the room, and the window began to crack. The darkness inside Ruth's cabin felt alive, not silent, alive. Something breathed within it. The air pulsed in slow, heavy waves, as though an unseen presence inhaled and exhaled through the wooden walls. Elijah couldn't see his own hands, but he felt the room closing in, shrinking, tightening, as if the shadows themselves were folding around him. Jonas grabbed Elijah's shoulder. "Don't move," he whispered in the dark. Ruth's voice came next, a quivering rasp. "Stay away from the window, both of you." But it was already too late. The cracking glass behind Elijah thickened, spreading like sharp, white veins across the pane. Each crack hissed softly, like something breathing against the window from outside. Elijah forced himself not to look, but the sound grew louder. Crack, crack, crack. Then a slow, dragging scrape traveled across the glass, as though something long and skeletal were tracing the symbol carved into Elijah's skin. Jonas pulled Elijah back. "Ruth, what do we do?" "He's quiet," Ruth snapped. "He listens through the fog." Elijah felt a cold ripple crawl down his spine, like icy fingers brushing his neck. The fog outside pressed harder against the cabin, making the walls bend inward with soft groans. And then, a whisper, low, deep, too close, "Witness." The cabin plunged into a silence so sharp that Elijah felt his heartbeat thudding like a drum in his skull. Jonas stumbled back. "He's speaking inside." "Ruth, he's inside." "No," Ruth shook her head violently. "He doesn't enter walls. He stands at the threshold. Always at the threshold." Another crack split the window. This time, a sliver of pale white mist seeped through the fractured glass, thread-thin but alive, searching the air like a probing tongue. Ruth moved quickly. She reached beneath her bed, pulling out a small clay bowl filled with something dark and thick. She dipped her fingers into it, and the smell hit Elijah instantly. Sharp, metallic, old. Not paint. Not ink. Blood. Ruth smeared the blood across the symbols carved into her floor. They glowed faintly, fighting back against the growing cold. She whispered words Elijah couldn't understand. Ancient words, heavy and trembling. Jonas hissed, "Ruth, what is that? What are you doing?" Ruth didn't answer. The mist thinned for a moment, retreating slightly from the symbols. But then, a different sound cut through the room, soft, wet. Heavy.it came from the window. Something was pressing its face against the glass. Elijah turned before he could stop himself. A shape, elongated, twisted, stood inches from the pane. Its hollow eyes burned faintly, their glow pulsing in rhythm with Elijah's heartbeat. And its mouth moved. The voice seeped through, vibrating the broken glass. "Witness what she saw." Elijah staggered back, crashing into Jonas. "What she saw?" Jonas whispered. "What does that mean?" "Who?" "Mary Beth," Ruth whispered. "He's speaking of Mary Beth." Elijah swallowed, throat tight. "Why? What did Mary Beth see?" Ruth finally looked at him, really looked at him. Fear burned in her eyes, but so did something else, sorrow. "Mary Beth saw the truth," Ruth whispered. "And the truth consumed her." The window trembled. A long, pale hand, impossibly thin, pressed against the glass from outside, its fingers too many, its joints bending the wrong way. The fog curled around it like worshipping serpents. Jonas grabbed a chair and lifted it like a weapon. "If he breaks through, put that down," Ruth snapped. "You cannot fight something that isn't flesh." The wooden window frame groaned. A second hand appeared beside the first. The cabin's temperature plummeted. Elijah's breath crystallized in front of him. The voice seeped in again. "She followed me." Jonas shouted back, "Why? Why her?" The fog swirled violently, slamming against the wall. "Because she remembered." Elijah felt his heart seize. Remembered what? The figure pressed its forehead against the glass. The frost spread, spiraling outward. What they all forget. Ruth stepped back, shaking her head. "He wants to show you." He wants to drag you into the white the way he dragged her. Elijah gasped. The white? You mean the mist? No, Ruth whispered. The place inside it. The place where sound dies and memory lives. The place where he waits. Jonas's voice cracked. Ruth, how do we stop him? We can't. We can only delay him. Jonas looked at Elijah, then at Ruth. Delay him for what? Ruth hesitated, then whispered something Elijah would never forget, for the night to end. But the night was far from ending. The window exploded inward. Shards of ice glass flew like razors through the room. Jonas shielded Elijah. The fog surged through the broken pane, twisting violently, slamming against the floor and walls like a living storm. The candle relit itself, flaring so bright the shadows fled to the corners, and standing in the center of the fog, materializing from its swirling white body, was the figure, tall, hollow-eyed, silent, and no longer outside. Inside. Ruth screamed, "Run! Elijah, run!" Jonas shoved him toward the door, just as the fog coils wrapped around Jonas's leg, pulling him off balance. Elijah turned back, reaching for him. Jonas. Jonas's eyes widened. Go. The fog gripped him tighter. And then, the floor beneath Jonas split open. Not naturally. Not like wood breaking. Like something beneath the earth had opened its mouth. Elijah lunged forward, but Ruth held him back with surprising strength. Don't look, she yelled. Don't you dare look down. But Elijah heard it, that a voice rising from the dark crack in the floor. Mary Beth's voice, calling his name. Elijah. His heart nearly stopped. Ruth dragged him out the door, the cold air slicing across their faces as they stumbled into the night. Behind them, the cabin roared with impossible wind and breaking wood. They ran and ran until they reached the far end of the quarters. Elijah gasped. Ruth. Jonas. What happened to Jonas? Ruth didn't answer, because they both heard it, a new sound, a heavy, slow shift in the fog behind them. Something was stepping out of Ruth's ruined cabin. Something taller, something darker, something not alone. Ruth turned pale as bone. Elijah, she whispered, voice breaking. He brought someone with him. The fog parted, and a second silhouette stepped forward, small, feminine, barefoot, and its voice, fragile and broken, whispered through the night. I remember. The figure lifted its head. It was Mary Beth. But not Mary Beth. Her eyes were gone, and her face carried the same hollow glow as the watcher. The woman standing in the drifting fog looked like Mary Beth, but she moved like something wearing her shape. Her bare feet didn't disturb the ground. Her hair floated as if underwater, and her hollow eyes glowed faintly, flickering like dying lantern flames. Elijah's breath hitched. Mary Beth. The figure tilted her head slowly, as though the name was a memory she was trying to recall. Her lips parted, and a soft, trembling sound poured out. I remember, and I cannot forget. Ruth pushed Elijah behind her. Do not listen to her. She is not alive. Boy, she is trapped. Half here, half in the white. Mary Beth's head twitched sharply at the word white. The fog around her curled inward, reacting like living smoke. Behind her, the watcher remained still, giant, formless, his presence warping the air like heat. Jonas was gone. The cabin behind them was torn open like a wound in the world. Elijah could still hear echoes from that split floor. Mary Beth's voice calling from someplace far deeper than earth. But the woman now standing before him wasn't calling. She was remembering. Mary Beth took a step forward. The ground didn't crunch beneath her. It murmured. Ruth raised a trembling hand. Stay back, child. That thing wears her memory, not her soul. Mary Beth's expression shifted, pain flickering across her hollow face. I tried to warn you, she whispered, but you walked too close. The white marked you, just as it marked me. Elijah's skin crawled. Why me? Why would he choose me? Mary Beth's eyes flickered brighter. Because you hear it. Hear what? Elijah whispered. Mary Beth leaned forward, her face inches from his, but still somehow impossibly distant, like a reflection in a moving well. the voices in the fog. Elijah felt something move behind his ear, a whisper, a breath, a name being spoken, his name, but not from any human mouth. Ruth yanked him backward. Don't let her speak to you. If you answer, you join her. Mary Beth flinched at the pull, as though something inside her recoiled. He doesn't want your voice, she said. He wants your sight. Elijah shuddered. My sight. He wants you to see what she saw. Mary Beth murmured, pointing at herself with a trembling, distorted finger. Her arm elongated unnaturally, joints stretching out of shape. He wants you to see the place where I woke up. The place beneath the fields. Ruth grabbed Elijah's wrist. We're leaving. Now. But Mary Beth's voice sharpened. You cannot run from fog. It remembers every footstep. The words hung in the air, chilling and heavy. Behind Mary Beth, the watcher shifted, only slightly, but enough for the fog to ripple outward in a silent shockwave. The ground trembled. Ruth pushed Elijah. Move, boy. They ran. Mary Beth didn't chase. She simply watched, her expression hollow, sorrowful, resigned. Elijah and Ruth stumbled toward the far end of the quarters. The fog followed them like a slow-moving tide. Not rushing, not aggressive, patient, predatory. The moon above them began to dim again, swallowed by drifting white clouds. The night thickened, heavy with pressure. Elijah's lungs burned as he ran. Ruth gasped, we must reach the old barn. There's iron there. Fog hates iron. But when they turned the corner toward the barn, Elijah stopped dead in his tracks. The barn doors, massive wooden planks, were hanging open, not broken, not forced, opened from inside. Warm light flickered within, though no lantern burned. It was an unnatural glow, yellowish, pulsing like a heartbeat. And from deep inside, echoes drifted out. Voices, hundreds of them, layered, whispering, calling, all saying the same word, witness. Elijah froze. It's coming from inside the barn. Ruth cursed under her breath. We should have gone to the river. The barn is too close to the old clearing. What's in the clearing? Elijah whispered. Ruth didn't answer, because a new figure stepped into the barn's doorway. A man, tall, dressed in tattered work clothes, head hanging low. His skin was pale, too pale, and his gestures slow, stiff, puppet-like. Elijah felt his stomach drop. Is that? Ruth's nails dug into his arm. Don't say his name. The figure raised his head. Jonas. But not Jonas. His eyes were white. Empty. Reflective. His chest rose and fell with no breath, and his mouth moved without sound. Until suddenly, a cold whisper seeped out. I saw it. Elijah took a step back. Jonas, what did you see? Jonas stepped forward. His movements were jagged, as if strings pulled him from below. His arms hung crookedly, his fingers twitching with unnatural spasms. His voice broke into a shattered echo. I saw where she is. Mary Beth's voice drifted in from behind them. We all see it. Once he chooses us. Ruth spun around, startled. Mary Beth and the watcher were closer now, drifting silently through the fog. The fog thickened around Elijah, curling around his legs like vines. He tried to pull free, but the mist clung to him with cold, sticky weight. Ruth shoved him toward the barn. Inside. Hurry. No. Elijah cried. The voices, iron, boy. Ruth shouted. Iron keeps him out. But when Elijah stumbled into the barn, he realized something horrifying. The glow wasn't coming from lanterns. It was coming from symbols. Hundreds of them, scratched into the walls, floor, beams, roof, glowing with faint yellow light, pulsing like veins. In the center of the barn, the ground dipped slightly, forming a small, perfectly round circle of packed earth. A footprint. One single footprint, large, deep, fresh. Ruth froze when she saw it. Her face went ashen. Elijah, she whispered, voice shaking. Whatever made that print is not the watcher. Elijah's blood ran cold. Then what is it? Ruth swallowed. It's what he serves. The earth beneath the footprint shuddered. Dust rose. The wood beams creaked, and then a slow, heavy thud echoed beneath the barn floor. Once, then again, a heartbeat. The earth was breathing. Mary Beth stepped into the doorway, her hollow eyes glowing softly. She raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the floor. Elijah, he wants you to see what sleeps beneath. The ground cracked, soil split open. Something massive began to rise, and from the widening crack, a voice, deep, ancient, inhuman, whispered, "Come down." The floor collapsed beneath Elijah's feet. Ruth screamed. Mary Beth vanished. The watcher stepped forward, and Elijah fell into the white. Elijah didn't hit the ground, he fell through it. Cold, blinding whiteness swallowed him. Thick, weightless, endless. It wasn't fog. It wasn't air. It was something in between, something that pressed against his skin like invisible hands that he tried to scream, but the sound didn't travel. It stayed inside his head, echoing against his skull. Then, he stopped falling. He hovered in the whiteness, suspended as if held up by strings. Elijah. The voice was soft. Familiar. Too familiar. He turned. Mary Beth stood beside him. But she was different here, clearer, solid, almost alive. Her eyes were no longer hollow. They were brown again, gentle, lost. Mary Beth? Elijah whispered. She shook her head slowly. Not anymore. The white doesn't let us stay ourselves. It remembers only pieces of us and forgets the rest. Elijah's heart pounded. Where are we? She slowly lifted her hand. The whiteness around them shifted, pulling back like a curtain. A landscape formed. A field, endless, silent, empty. A single, massive oak tree stood at the center, its roots twisted, stretching across the ground like black veins. At its base was a hole, a deep, dark pit leading into nothingness, and carved into the tree's bark were hundreds of handprints, every one of them glowing faintly yellow. Elijah whispered, "What is this place?" Mary Beth answered with a trembling voice, "The place beneath the fields, where he buries the ones he chooses." Elijah took a small step backward, but the ground wasn't solid. The white surface rippled like water beneath his feet. Mary Beth reached out quickly and grabbed his wrist. Her touch was cold, but firm. "Don't move too fast. The white doesn't like sudden movement." He swallowed hard. "What does he want from me?" Mary Beth's lips trembled. "Your sight. The white takes pieces of us, memories, moments, but he wants something different from you." "Why me?" Mary Beth pointed at his eyes. "Because you see what others don't. You notice shifts in the fog. You hear the voices. You listened." Elijah's voice shook. "I didn't try to. That doesn't matter. The moment you listened, he marked you." A deep rumble echoed under their feet. The ground pulsed. Once, twice, a heartbeat. Mary Beth's expression went blank with fear. "He's waking up." Elijah's chest tightened. "Who?" She didn't look at him. Her eyes drifted toward the pit beneath the oak tree. "The old one, the one the watcher serves. The one who sleeps until he finds a voice strong enough to speak his world back open." Elijah shook his head. "I don't understand." Mary Beth squeezed his wrist harder. "You don't need to understand. You just need to run." "But you said don't move fast." Elijah, her voice cracked. "There are things worse than the white." A distant sound echoed from the pit. No, not distant. Rising, climbing, a scraping noise, like bone against stone. Something was coming up. Elijah backed away, fear choking his breath. "We have to go." Mary Beth didn't move. She stared at the pit, frozen in horror. "He's early. He shouldn't be awake yet." "Not until the moon cycles." The scraping grew louder. Then, a hand gripped the edge of the pit. But it wasn't a human hand. It was enormous. Pale as ash. Fingers too long, bending the wrong way. Veins glowing with dim yellow light. Mary Beth shoved Elijah back. "Don't look at him. If you meet his eyes." But it was too late. A second hand emerged. Then a face began to rise. Massive, expressionless, skull-like. Its eyes opened. Two pits filled with swirling white mist. Elijah's legs gave out. The old one looked directly at him. A voice, so deep it vibrated the air, spoke inside Elijah's mind. "I found you." The world shook. The white broke apart, cracking like glass. Mary Beth screamed, "Run!" Elijah tried to stand, but the ground beneath him split open. He fell again, straight down, into pure darkness. The white shattered above him. He heard one last, distant whisper. "He's coming after you next, Elijah." Then everything went black. Elijah's body slammed into something cold and unyielding. Not ground, not stone, something smoother, polished, almost carved. He lay there, dazed, gasping for air as a thin layer of darkness rippled beneath him like liquid shadow. Then, light flickered, not from above, from below. He slowly pushed himself up, realizing he was standing on a vast, circular platform suspended over a bottomless abyss. The underside glowed faintly with shifting sigils, symbols twisting like they were alive. That a whisper drifted across the space. "Elijah." He turned sharply. Mary Beth was nowhere in sight. The white was gone. The old one was above him, but distant, like a fading nightmare. Here, he was alone. Almost, across the platform stood a row of wooden posts, tall, ugly, roughly carved. Shackles dangled from them, and beneath each post, a pile of shoes. Worn, muddy, ripped at children's shoes, women's shoes, men's boots, all lined. In haunting little collections, abandoned beneath the posts like offerings no one ever returned to claim. That Elijah's throat tightened. "Mary Beth, is this where they—" A voice answered from the shadows behind him. "Yes." Elijah spun around. A man stood at the platform's edge, half consumed by darkness. He wore old, tattered work clothes from a time long gone. Clothes Elijah had only seen in crumbling sketches and plantations' forgotten records. But his face, it wasn't decayed. It wasn't ghostly. It was tired, sad, aware. "Who are you?" Elijah whispered. The man stepped closer, revealing a thick iron collar around his neck, engraved with those same glowing sigils from the platform. "My name was Ezekiel," he said quietly. "Long before this place claimed me." Elijah's heart thundered. "Are you alive?" "Not in the way you mean." Ezekiel's voice held no breath, no warmth. "This place keeps us between. Not living, not dead, just waiting." "For what?" Ezekiel's gaze drifted to the rows of shoes. "For him to call us again." Elijah swallowed. "You mean the old one?" Ezekiel nodded slowly. "He devours memory, identity, time itself. His world feeds on the forgotten, the lost, those who slipped into the mist and never returned." Elijah took a step back. "What do you want from me?" Ezekiel hesitated, then spoke with pain in every word. "You are the first one he has chased, the first he has marked in over 100 years. He does not mark someone unless—" He stopped. "Unless what?" Elijah demanded. Ezekiel's eyes flicked upward, as if sensing something moving above them. "Unless he intends to break the boundary." Elijah didn't understand. What boundary? The one between his world and yours. The one that keeps the white from swallowing the living. Ezekiel's voice trembled for the first time. "And he needs a voice that carries across both realms." Elijah shook his head. "Why me? Why my voice?" "Because you listened," Ezekiel said softly. "And more importantly, because you remembered." Elijah's breath caught. "Remembered what?" Ezekiel stepped even closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "Mary Beth didn't just disappear. She didn't wander into the mist. She was taken because she heard something in the fog and repeated it." "Repeated what?" Ezekiel's eyes widened with fear. "A phrase, a call, a word older than anything spoken on this earth." Elijah felt cold creep into his bones. "What word? Tell me." Ezekiel swallowed hard. "It begins with—" He froze, his eyes widened. The air around them suddenly shivered. A deep vibration rolled through the platform, so low it rattled Elijah's teeth. "No," Ezekiel whispered. "No, he found us." Light erupted beneath the platform. Yellow, violent, alive. The symbols began to spin. From the abyss below, a massive shape moved, slowly rising toward them, shaking the entire structure with each upward surge. Ezekiel shoved Elijah backward. "Whatever you do, don't let him hear your thoughts." Elijah stumbled. "How do I stop that?" "Think nothing." Ezekiel shouted. "Silence your mind." But it was already too late. A voice, vast, ancient, and impossibly close, spoke inside Elijah's skull, drowning every thought he had. "You cannot hide from me." The darkness beneath the platform split open like a jaw. A colossal white eye stared up at him. The old one was directly below. Elijah screamed. The platform buckled, cracked, shattered. He fell, straight into the eye, and the last thing he heard was Ezekiel's voice fading into the darkness. "Run, Elijah, before he takes your name too." Elijah didn't fall through darkness this time, that he fell through visions. Images flickered around him like shattered glass suspended in midair. Each shard showed a different scene. Some real, some impossible, all terrifying, that a child running through a fog-covered field, that a lantern swaying in a wind that wasn't there. Footprints going in circles until they vanished abruptly, that a woman standing in the mist, whispering at something unseen. Mary Beth's hand reaching out, that a massive oak tree with roots that twitched like living veins. And behind everything, a single, unblinking eye. Elijah hit the ground hard. This time, it wasn't stone or darkness that it was. Soil. Rich, black, freshly turned soil. Like the earth over a newly dug grave, he pushed himself up, coughing, wiping dirt from his mouth as he looked around. He was standing in a field, but not a field from the world he knew. This one was endless, dead silent. The sky above was white and swirling, and the horizon bent unnaturally, curving upward like the inside of a bowl. This was a world shaped by something that didn't understand human reality, that a world designed by a creature that dreamed instead of lived. Elijah. The voice was everywhere at once, above him, behind him, beneath him, inside him. The old one wasn't speaking with sound, it was speaking with memory. Elijah backed up. "Stay out of my head." The sky darkened. The field rippled. Something rose out of the soil. At first, Elijah thought it was a tree. Then he realized. It was not growing, it was forming, stretching upward like a spine, being assembled bone by bone. At the top, a face emerged, smooth, pale, without a mouth. Its eyes opened slowly, glowing with swirling fog. The old one was building a shape it thought resembled a human, but it was wrong, horribly wrong. Elijah stumbled backward. "What do you want from me?" The faceless shape cocked its head, as if studying him. Then, another shape rose from the soil, and another, dozens, hundreds, all pale, all faceless, all turning toward him at once, their heads tilted in the same broken angle. The old one's voice filled the sky. "Show me your world." Elijah shook his head frantically. "No and no." But the ground beneath his feet cracked open. A root shot up, black and slick like an oil-soaked vine, and wrapped around his leg. He tried to pull free. Another root clamped around his wrist, another around his other wrist. Then his throat. He couldn't breathe, that he couldn't scream, that he could barely think. The faceless figures stepped closer, their hands lifted, reaching toward him with slow, unnatural movements. The old one spoke again. "Your voice will open the path." Elijah felt something pressing into his mind, rummaging through memories, tearing thoughts apart, searching for something specific, a word, a phrase, a sound he didn't remember hearing. But it remembered him hearing. That he gasped as his vision blurred. Mary Beth's face flickered in front of him. Ezekiel's warning echoed. "Do not let him take your name." But the old one wasn't searching for his name. It was searching for the call, the one Mary Beth accidentally repeated, the one Elijah had heard in the mist. Years ago, without understanding, his mind throbbed. His bones felt like they were vibrating. The faceless figures leaned closer, pressing their non-existent faces inches from his. The old one whispered, "Give it to me." Elijah's jaw moved against his will. His throat tightened. A sound tried to crawl up his vocal cords. A word, a syllable, a shape of something not human, trying to force its way out of him. "No," Elijah choked. "Stop, stop." But the word pushed harder, breaking him apart from the inside. And right before he said it, right before the call escaped his mouth, a hand burst out of the soil behind him and grabbed his shoulder. A human hand, a familiar hand. A voice screamed, "Elijah, don't speak." Elijah froze. The old one recoiled. The entire field trembled. The faceless figures jerked back, their bodies flickering like they were glitching. The voice behind him whispered urgently, "If you say that word, the boundary will break." Elijah turned and saw who had grabbed him. His breath stopped, his eyes widened, his mind broke, because standing behind him was his own mother, but she was supposed to be dead. For a moment, Elijah forgot how to breathe. The hand gripping his shoulder was warm, real. The face staring back at him was the same one he had cried over. the one he remembered only in fading flashes of childhood. His mother, not a ghost, not a vision, not a dream shaped by the old one as she stood before him, tired, pale, eyes swollen, with years of sleeplessness, but undeniably alive. "Mom?" Elijah whispered. Her lips trembled. "My sweet boy, I prayed you'd never come here." His heart thrashed. But, but you died. They said you disappeared in the storm. I didn't disappear." Her voice cracked. "I was taken, the same way Mary Beth was. The same way so many before her were." Elijah felt the roots loosen slightly around him, as if the old one were momentarily confused by her presence. "How are you alive?" he whispered. "I'm not alive here," she said quietly. "And I'm not dead either. I'm held." The sky above rumbled at her words. The faceless figures had gone still, their heads tilted toward her like insects sensing an intruder. Elijah's mother stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "You must listen carefully. You have to fight him. You can't let him pull the word out of you." Elijah struggled against the roots. "What word? Everyone keeps saying that, but no one tells me." "You heard it when you were 7, she whispered, tears welling. "The night the fog rolled into our house. The night I disappeared." Elijah's breath hitched. A memory, one he had forgotten, stirred in the back of his mind. That a lantern flickering outside. That a humming sound. His mother screaming his name. That a whisper crawling under the door. His mother grabbed his face gently. "You repeated it in your sleep. You didn't know what it meant. You were just a child. But he heard you. He marked you that night." Elijah shook his head violently. "Stop. Stop. I don't remember any of this." "That's because the old one took the memory," she said. "He leaves the world broken so people forget what really happens in the mist." Elijah felt nausea twist inside him. "Why does he need me?" "Because your voice reached both worlds," she whispered. "And if you speak that word again, it will tear the boundary open." The ground trembled. The faceless figures began slowly to move again, this time surrounding the two of them from all sides. Elijah's mother tightened her grip on his arms. "There isn't much time. He's rebuilding himself. He's close to waking fully. But what does he want?" Elijah cried. Her voice broke completely. "He wants names, he wants souls, he wants a door." Elijah shook. "A door to what?" "To your world," she whispered. The sky above them split open, revealing a swirling expanse of the white, the eye of the old one glaring down like a moon made of bone. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "Elijah, he will use you to cross over." Elijah's vision blurred with panic. "Then tell me how to stop him." Her eyes filled with terror, not because of Elijah's question, but because of something rising behind him. "Elijah," her voice shrank to a fragile breath. "Don't turn around. Whatever you do, don't look." Elijah froze. His mother's face went pale. Her eyes widened with a horror he had never seen in any living person. "The moment you look at him, he will take your mind." A shadow slid across the soil, tall, massive, wronged at a voice, low and vast, filled every inch of the dreamlike field. "I gave her back to you so you would speak." Elijah's blood went cold. The old one was behind him. His mother gasped and stepped back as a tendril of white mist curled around Elijah's ankles. "Run," she whispered, shaking uncontrollably. "Run." But Elijah couldn't move. The faceless figures knelt as one, bowing to the presence behind him. The old one spoke again, directly into Elijah's spine. "I will show you the memory you lost." Elijah's mind buckled. The ground cracked open. A whirlpool of white mist spiraled beneath him. His mother screamed, her voice shredding with helplessness. "Elijah, don't let him take you." But the mist surged upward, wrapped around him, dragged him off the ground, and pulled him straight into a memory he didn't know he still had. Into the night, everything began. Into the night, his mother vanished. And the last thing he heard before the world inverted was his mother's voice breaking. "He's taking you to the night of the word." Elijah fell through the white, spiraling mist as though gravity no longer existed. Time had no meaning. Every second stretched into hours, and every hour condensed into a heartbeat. The faceless figures vanished into nothingness, leaving only him, the old one, and a shifting memory, a memory that was not entirely his. The mist split open like the skin of some massive, unseen creature, and Elijah found himself standing in his childhood bedroom. The moonlight outside the window was pale and weak, filtering through torn curtains. The air smelled of wet earth and smoke, just as it had that night so many years ago, when he was 7. He saw himself, smaller, curled up on the bed, trembling. And across the room, a shadow, immense, watching, waiting. The old one's voice whispered, omnipresent and terrifying. Look, remember, tell. Elijah's stomach churned. He realized the memory wasn't passive. He was inside it, forced to relive it, feel it, understand it. Outside the window, the fog rolled in, thick and alive. He saw his mother, younger, rushing to close the shutters. She held a lantern, its light flickering wildly. Her lips moved. He could hear it in his head. Elijah, don't speak it. A chill ran down his spine. The old one spoke again, the word. Speak it, and the barrier falls. Repeat it, and you bring the white fully into your world. Remember it, child. Remember what you whispered in your sleep. Elijah's body shook violently. The memory intensified that he saw himself, eyes wide, mouth moving. But he didn't remember what he had said, only that it had been a sound, a syllable that carried power too vast for a child to comprehend. The old one loomed behind the shadow of his younger self, its face featureless but immense. Its hands reached toward him, stretching impossibly far. It did not touch the child. It didn't need to. The child's own voice was enough. That a voice screamed in Elijah's memory. Stop him. Don't say it. He looked. His mother, standing behind the lantern, shaking her fists at the old one. She tried to block the sound, to protect him, but her power was not enough. The memory shifted. He was outside now, running in the fog, the old one following, the shadows of Mary Beth and the countless others flowing behind it. Then it struck him. He had never really escaped that night. Every choice, every step of his life had led him here. The old one had been calling him, shaping him, preparing him for this moment. The word he had whispered as a child had marked him, tethered him to the white, made him the bridge between the two worlds. The mist thickened. The old one's voice became inside his skull, echoing and vibrating through his very bones. Give it to me. The word. Say it. Remember it. Elijah's throat went dry. He tried to fight it. He tried to run. He tried to scream. But the faceless figures rose again, surrounding him in a tight circle, pressing inward, their presence suffocating. Their hands reached toward him, their faces featureless and gleaming with anticipation. And then he saw it. Another memory, this one hidden beneath the others, the night his mother disappeared. Not taken by the storm, not lost to chance. She had faced the old one alone, and in doing so, she had stolen back the word from the mist long enough to hide it from him. She had given herself to it, so he could grow, so he could remember when the time came. Elijah's chest constricted. Mom, I understand now. The old one's presence surged, deafening and oppressive. It tilted its featureless head. You know, and now you must speak it. A syllable formed on Elijah's tongue, almost unwillingly. One small sound that could shatter worlds. He fought it with every ounce of will, his body trembling. If I say it, everything dies, he thought. If I don't, he will consume me. The faceless figures leaned closer, whispers rising in a cacophony. Say it. Say it. Say it. Elijah's mind spun. The memory of his mother, Mary Beth, Ezekiel, and all the lost souls swirled around him. Their faces, their voices, their fears, they were all here. He looked up. The old one's massive, white eye filled his vision. It was waiting. Hungry. Infinite. Elijah's lips parted. The word almost escaped. Then, a deafening, shattering scream split the memory. The sky cracked. The mist swirled violently. Something touched his mind from behind. A hand. Human. Warm, trembling, pressed against his shoulder, he turned. Not his mother. Not Mary Beth. A new figure stood there, cloaked in shadow. Its face was hidden, but its presence stopped the old one in mid-motion. Its voice was calm, gentle, terrifyingly powerful. You are not ready, Elijah. And if you speak it now, everything you love dies before your eyes. Elijah froze. The faceless figures hissed, recoiling slightly. The old one's voice became a rumble, deep and furious. Who dares? The figure stepped closer, and the mist parted, revealing a faint glow beneath the cloak. Elijah's stomach twisted. Something about this figure felt older than the old one. Older than the white itself. It whispered directly into his mind. I will guide you, but you must follow, or the word will claim you. Do you understand? Elijah's lips trembled. I understand. The figure extended a hand. A black, trembling void where the glow pulsed faintly. Elijah had no choice. He reached toward it. The old one roared, a sound that shook the very foundation of the white. And as his fingers touched the glow, the world split apart around him. He fell into something far older than the white, a place even the old one feared. And from the shadows beyond, a whisper curled through the void. Welcome to the heart of memory. Elijah, here, you will see what he will never show anyone alive. Elijah fell through the void, weightless, time meaningless. Around him, shadows stretched endlessly, folding in on themselves. Whispers slithered through the darkness, carrying voices he recognized and others he did not. Children, mothers, fathers, faces that flickered in and out of existence. Some screaming silently, some laughing faintly, and all reaching toward him with desperate hands. The figure that guided him, cloaked and glowing faintly, floated beside him. Its voice was calm, yet trembled with a power Elijah could feel deep in his chest. Every memory here is a cage, it whispered. Every soul that entered the white left pieces behind. Pieces he consumes to build his world. You must see, Elijah, to understand what he wants, and why he cannot be defeated the way you imagine. Elijah looked down and felt the ground, if he could even call it that, quiver beneath him. Shapes formed, shifting into rough, jagged landscapes, twisted forests of bones, rivers of gray water that reflected impossible skies, mountains that moaned as though alive. That he realized the landscape was alive with memory itself. Not his own, but all the memories the old one had swallowed over centuries. Every stolen thought, every forgotten life, every child lost to the mist. They formed the ground beneath him, the sky above him, and the walls that closed in on all sides. Why? Why does he need all this? Elijah whispered, his voice small against the immense void. The cloaked figure's hand brushed his shoulder. Because he cannot create. He can only remember what he consumes. Every person he marks becomes a seed, a word spoken, a life remembered. Without it, he cannot exist beyond the white. Elijah shivered. So Mary Beth, my mother. All of them. They were just fuel? The figure's glow pulsed, almost sorrowful. Not fuel, child. Tools. Witnesses. Keys. And you are the first who may break the cycle. Elijah's stomach turned cold. Break it. How? The figure gestured, and the void around them shifted. Scenes of Mary Beth walking into the mist. Ezekiel chained in the shadowed platform. His mother hiding the word. All replayed before his eyes. Faster, overlapping, chaotic. Then, in the center of it all, he saw something horrifying. A vision of himself, standing at the edge of a cliff made of fog, whispering a word that pulsed like fire, at a word he didn't fully understand. The old one's voice boomed through the void, filling Elijah's mind. Give me the word, child. Speak it. I am eternal. You are mortal. Do you understand? Elijah's fingers shook. His throat tightened. He could almost hear the syllable rising to his lips. But something pulled at his consciousness, a force older than the old one itself. The cloaked figure turned, its glow brighter, and whispered urgently. Do not speak. Not yet. First, see the truth. A wall of memories erupted before him. A vision older than the plantation, older than the land itself. Villages swallowed by fog centuries ago. Slaves, free men, and children wandering into the mist, screaming, lost forever. The old one hovering in the sky like a massive, eyeless god, whispering into the world, shaping reality with the word. Elijah's knees buckled. Hey, he's been doing this for centuries? All of it. Yes, the figure said softly. And now, he intends to cross fully into your world. If he does, no one will be spared. Not you, not your mother, not Mary Beth, no one. Elijah swallowed hard. Then what do I do? How do I stop him? The figure hesitated, then lowered its head. Its glow dimmed slightly, revealing a glimpse of a face beneath the hood. Elijah's blood froze. That it was a face familiar, but not human, not alive. And yet somehow he recognized it. The figure's voice trembled as it spoke. To stop him, you must follow me into the first memory he ever consumed. But beware, child, once you cross that threshold, you may never return the same. The void around them quivered. The air vibrated with anticipation, as if even the old one had paused. Elijah took a shaky step forward. I'll do it. I have to. The figure extended its hand fully. Its glow pulsed violently. Elijah reached toward it, and just as his fingers brushed the light, a sound ripped through the void to scream, the old one's scream. And from behind it, a voice, his mother's voice, but distorted, hollow, echoing from everywhere at once, whispered, Elijah, you are about to see what no living soul should witness. And the world cracked open beneath him. Elijah stepped through the glowing hand of the cloaked figure. The moment his fingers brushed the light, the void shattered. Like fragile glass, he was falling, again, but not through mist, not through darkness. He fell through time itself. The air burned with centuries. He could feel the old one stirring far above, aware of every heartbeat, every inhalation. Then Elijah landed, softly, impossibly, on soil that felt alive. Before him stretched a world he had never seen. Not a memory he had lived, not a memory he had imagined. That it was a village. Primitive, shivering under a storm of white fog. People ran, screaming, their voices swallowed before they left their mouths. Children clutched their mothers, and the mothers trembled, pointing at the fog rolling in from the horizon. And above the village, hovering impossibly in the sky, was the old one. Smaller than he had seen it before, but no less terrible. Its form was less defined, a swirling, half-formed presence of white and shadow, stretching its influence over everything. It didn't move among the villagers. It moved through them, touching their minds, bending their memories, shaping their fears. Elijah's stomach twisted. He realized these were the first lives it had ever claimed, the first whispers it had spoken. The cloaked figure appeared beside him. Its voice trembled with an emotion Elijah couldn't identify. Behold, it said, the beginning. The first time the word was spoken aloud and shaped the world. What you see here is why Mary Beth, your mother, Ezekiel, they were never meant to escape fully. And now, neither are you. Elijah's eyes widened as he took in the scene. A child, a boy, stood in the middle of a field, his small hands pressed to his ears. That he was screaming, but no sound escaped. Then, from the fog, a faint syllable rose. That it was the word. He felt it resonate deep in his chest, though it had existed centuries before he was born. The villagers froze. The boy's eyes widened in horror. The fog twisted, forming faces of the lost, Mary Beth, Ezekiel, his mother, echoing across time. The old one reached toward the boy, not physically, but mentally. Its influence pressed on his mind, shaping the syllable, bending it, feeding on it. The cloaked figure whispered urgently, do not repeat it, Elijah. Do not speak. You must witness, but you must not become part of it, yet. Elijah nodded, though his heart raced. His hands shook as the word pulsed through the air, vibrating the soil beneath his feet. And then he saw it. Behind the boy, emerging slowly from the fog, was a shape, a figure already ancient and terrible, even in that early memory. Its face was the same as the old one's now. Hollow, vast, infinite, and it whispered, I am the beginning, and I am all that comes after. Elijah's mind spun. He understood suddenly. This was the origin of the white, the source of all the lost souls. The reason the word carried so much power. The cloaked figure pressed against him, shaking slightly. Elijah, if you speak now, it will not stop. The boundary will fall, and everything you love, everything in your world, will belong to him. Do you understand? Elijah swallowed hard. I understand. The fog thickened, forming tunnels of whiteness leading toward the boy and the ancient figure. The old one's voice filled every corner of the memory. Heed me, child. Speak, or witness the world broken forever. Elijah stepped forward, drawn by terror and inevitability. His fingers itched to touch the syllable, to feel the word's pulse. And then, a second voice called from the edge of the fog, soft, familiar, terrifying. Elijah, do not follow the word. He turned, heart hammering. The cloaked figure had lifted its hood. Its face was his own. Elijah froze. The figure whispered, I am what you could become if you fail. A hand extended toward him. The fog writhed violently around it. And from behind the boy in the memory, the old one's form began to expand, growing taller, wider, darker, and impossibly closer. Its voice, a whisper and a roar at once, echoed, Speak, or be unmade. Elijah's knees shook. His mind raced. Every choice, every fear, every memory of Mary Beth, his mother, and Ezekiel collided into one unbearable weight. And then, just as he raised his hand toward the syllable, a shadow tore across the memory. Something moved faster than fog, stronger than the old one itself. It struck the boy. The syllable vanished, and a voice, sharper than a blade, cut through the void. You do not know who holds the word yet. Elijah froze. The memory twisted violently. The old one screamed, but now he was screaming at someone else. And the last thing Elijah saw before the world inverted again was the cloaked figure, his other self, vanishing into the fog with a message. If you speak next, you will answer for everything, and no one will save you. The memory warped around Elijah, the fog snapping and twisting as though alive. The boy in the field trembled under the weight of the old one's presence, the syllable pulsing in the air like a living heartbeat. Elijah felt it too, the word, vibrating inside him, reaching into his bones, pulling at his tongue. The cloaked figure, the one that looked like him, hovered nearby, glowing faintly. Its voice cut through the chaos. Do not speak. Not yet. The word is not yours to wield. If you utter it now, you will give him passage into your world, and every soul he has ever marked will follow. Elijah's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed to run, to close his mouth, to turn away. But curiosity and terror held him rooted. The old one loomed over the boy. Its form stretched impossibly high, folding the sky, bending the very fabric of the memory. It whispered, not with words, but with thought, directly into Elijah's mind. Speak. Give me the syllable. Let it breathe. Let it shape reality. You cannot resist. You are mine. Elijah's hands shook. His mouth ached as if the word were already trying to escape on its own. And then he saw it. Mary Beth, her hollow eyes, her floating form from the white, shimmering within the fog of memory. She raised a trembling hand toward the boy, and suddenly, pieces of the past began to fracture, her own memory intertwining with his, the words she had heard, the syllable she had almost spoken. Elijah understood. The word had existed long before him, long before Mary Beth, long before the plantation, long before the first human whispered it aloud. It was older than time, older than life itself, and it fed on everything that remembered it. The cloaked figure reached for Elijah, its hand passing through the fog. You must choose, it whispered. Do you obey the old one, or do you follow me? Elijah's gaze shifted back to the boy. The child's face was pure fear. The syllable hovered between them, a glowing pulse of impossible energy. If Elijah acted, if he spoke, the old one would rise fully into his world. If he didn't, the child would suffer, trapped in this memory forever, another soul consumed. The fog twisted violently, forming shapes of all the lost. Mary Beth, Ezekiel, his mother, countless others, screaming in silence. They were reaching toward him, pleading, dragging at his mind. Elijah's chest ached. His legs wobbled. His tongue trembled. And then the boy spoke, not the word. Not yet, but a fragment, a cry of fear that echoed across centuries. Help me. The old one recoiled, not entirely, but enough to show Elijah a fraction of its vulnerability. The air vibrated. The fog shuddered. The cloaked figure's glow surged. Elijah, it said firmly, you have the chance to twist the memory, to fracture the word's path. But be warned, once you act, there is no turning back. He will know, and he will hunt you. Elijah swallowed hard. His hands clenched into fists. His heart thundered. Every memory, every horror, every ghost of the past screamed at him to act. And yet, he felt a deeper fear than he had ever known. The boy trembled in the field, the syllable pulsing brighter. The old one's presence thickened, a suffocating weight pressing down. Elijah raised his hand slowly, toward the word, toward the boy, toward the impossible glow. And then, a scream erupted from the fog, not the boy's, not Elijah's, but Mary Beth's. Her eyes, glowing with sorrow and something darker, widened as she floated closer to him, reaching toward his face. Her voice, breaking through the fog, echoed in his mind. If you speak, you will doom us all, including yourself. The old one's shadow twisted violently, stretching across the field like a storm. Elijah froze. His hand hovered inches from the glowing syllable, and in that heartbeat, time stretched. The fog stilled. The memory paused, and a new, deeper voice whispered behind him. You think you are the first to choose, but the first has never left the word unclaimed. Elijah turned slowly. From the edge of the mist, a figure emerged, taller than the old one itself. Its form was ancient, and its eyes, impossibly deep, glowing faintly yellow like dying lanterns that it was waiting, watching, and its presence made Elijah's blood run cold, because he realized this figure had been here before Mary Beth, before the child, before the first memory itself. And now, it was waiting for him. Elijah's breath caught in his chest. The figure before him was impossibly tall, its eyes glowing like lanterns buried in darkness. Its presence made the old one shrink in comparison, though still vast and terrible. You were never meant to reach this far, the figure said, voice like grinding stone echoing through Elijah's mind. But you came anyway. Elijah's hands shook. What are you? The figure's glow pulsed. I am the first, the one who heard the word before it became a chain, before the white, before the old one. I was the first to resist, and I am the last who may stop it. The old one writhed in the fog, screaming, its faceless army shifting like black clouds of smoke. Its voice thundered, give me the word, and all will belong to me. Elijah's memories of Mary Beth, his mother, Ezekiel, all the lost souls, they flashed before his eyes. The cries, the whispers, the laughter and terror, they all begged him to act. The first figure extended a hand. You must wield it differently. Speak not to obey, but to remember, to reclaim the word from him. Only then can the white be shattered. Elijah's mind trembled. He thought of Mary Beth, walking into the mist, of his mother hiding the word, of every soul the old one had claimed over centuries that he inhaled deeply. The word hovered, pulsing like a heartbeat, alive and aware. And then he spoke, not aloud, but in every corner of memory, of mind, of existence itself, not to release it, not to obey it, but to remember it, to claim it as his own. The air tore. The mist convulsed. The old one screamed, a sound that could fracture worlds. The faceless figures shrieked and dissolved, screaming as centuries of stolen memories turned against their captor. Mary Beth appeared, solid and alive, her eyes full of relief and wonder. His mother emerged, pale but smiling faintly, free at last. The first figure nodded to Elijah. You have done what none before could. The word is yours. The white is broken. But know this, the balance is fragile. There are forces older than him, and they are watching. The old one writhed, shrinking into a puddle of mist, screaming promises of return, of revenge, of eternity. Elijah fell to his knees, exhausted. Around him, the memories of all those lost souls shimmered, floating free. They whispered thanks, sorrow, and hope. Mary Beth and his mother stepped closer, taking his hands. You saved us, Mary Beth whispered. Elijah's lips quivered. Did I really? The first figure's voice echoed, fading slowly. You survived, but survival is only the beginning. The white is gone, but its shadows remain. And the word will call again. The fog lifted. The fields disappeared. Elijah blinked, finding himself standing alone on the edge of a quiet plantation, morning light filtering softly through the trees. And yet, even in the calm, the air carried a whisper, faint but unmistakable. We are still here. Watching. Waiting. Elijah's eyes widened. He shivered. He knew this was not the end. Only the beginning of a story that would haunt generations. The screen of memory, the eye of the white, the echoes of the lost, all lingered in the corners of the mind, just beyond sight, whispering the promise of terror to anyone who dared listen. And somewhere, deep in the fog of the unseen world, the word pulsed, alive, waiting, patient, eternal. Elijah turned away from the plantation that he walked into the dawn, carrying the knowledge, the horror, and the power that could either save the world or doom it once more. The mist may be gone, but its story has only begun.